দিদি ইয়ে বন্ধ হচ্ছে, আমি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে তো বলে
বলো
দিচ্ছি।
বলো বলো বলো। আচ্ছা, কিসের?
তাহলে কি করবি? হ্যাঁ বল। হ্যাঁ আমি, তুই এটা কর না, কর, কিছু হবে না।
শুরু করবো তাহলে? আচ্ছা, good afternoon and cordial welcome to everyone to the third session of the webinar series organized by Jadavpur Government College on interpretation of survival strategies of nature and human amidst pandemic and natural disaster. Participants on Google Meet are requested to mute their microphone, and participants on YouTube Live are requested to leave their questions. After 15 or 20 minutes, the lecture will start. We have already enjoyed two fantastic sessions. First one was on 11th July by Professor Soumitra Basu, and second session was on 30th July by Dr. Maitri Chakraborty. Today we are grateful to have Dr. Amites Mukhopadhyay as our speaker. He is the professor of the Department of Sociology, Jadavpur University. His research interests include the sociology, social anthropology of environment and development in South Asia, with particular focus on coastal India and deltaic borderlands. Competing perspectives on development and resource use, governance, state making, and discourse of civil society in Indian context. Today, Dr. Mukhopadhyay will talk on vulnerable yet resilient people, cyclones, embankments, and the Sundarbans. It is our great pleasure and honor to have you, sir, among us. Now, may I request you, sir, to present your lecture, please.
Thank you, Rini, for this very warm invite to everybody at Jadavpur College to have me on board. Something which relates to our times, quite difficult and yet struggling and surviving. Although I have the slide in front of me, which reads vulnerable yet resilient people, cyclone embankments and the Sundarbans, but I thought I would title my lecture or my sharing with you what happens in the Sundarbans. It's primarily keeping that in mind, I decided to have the title Vulnerable and Resilient People, Cyclone in the Time of a Pandemic in Sundarbans. Now, before I get on with what I intend to share with you all, maybe a quick look at what probably a place which is known to many of us might seem repetitious to many who are present here today, but it is also a place which might not be known to people who might be here today with us. So at the cost of being repetitive, let me just quickly sort of look at what this place is, the Sundarbans. Can I have slide 2, please? In a very common parlance, Sundarbans, as we know, is a mangrove delta which lies to the south of Bengal in post-partition India, West Bengal. Earlier, a place which was both together India and today's Bangladesh, together the unpartitioned Bengal Delta, which was largely a group of islands and archipelago by the confluence of the Ganges, Meghna, and Brahmaputra, with their innumerable, creeks and channels and tributaries and distributaries. Ganga Brahmaputra Delta stretches over several miles from the shoreline Orissa to those of Chittagong and Burma in the east, which was a major, frontier region, which was animated by opposing flows of water, fresh water sort of hurtling all the way down from the Himalayas towards Bay of Bengal, and salt water stinging up with the tide of the Indian Ocean into the Bengal hinterland. Can I have the third slide, please? A satellite image of Sundarbans. To slide number 4, please. Gives us a kind of a sense of what this place is all about, with the rivers basically crisscrossing, creating its own, land surfaces as it goes along, eating into some lands and allowing lands to emerge at other ends, and that's how it's a kind of a mesh of a river, canals, creeks, which kind of flow across Bangladesh and to its west, the West Bengal of today's India. Slide number 10, please. Roughly, the region encompasses an area of about 25,500 square kilometers, 2/3 of which lie in Bangladesh and 1/3 in India. The line which demarcates, kind of makes the boundary of Sundarban, marks it off on the non-Sundarban parts, is what is still today known as the Dampier-Hodges line. Can I have quickly the slide number 13, please? Now, if you look at this, then the region which lies to the north of this Bengal Delta, if we look at simply Sundarban of West Bengal in India, then the line which sort of goes across, the northernmost sort of a boundary that it sets Sundarban apart from the rest of non-Sundarban parts, is what was surveyed as by Dampier and Hodges, the two surveyors, in the early 1830s, and that still remains the major distinguishing kind of a line, imaginary line, beyond which lies the non-Sundarban parts, and to the south of that line lie the entire forested and the settled islands of the Sundarban Delta, and the line eventually goes into Bangladesh, because originally the surveyed area was pre-partition Bengal. Eventually the line continues even when the partition had eventually become the reality for most of us in South Asia. This is, can we just quickly go back to the slide number 10, please? Now, this is a kind of a very fast moving saline, watery surface, which is known all over the world for the last remaining natural habitat of the mangroves, as well as the Bengal tiger, roughly a home to about 600 of them. In 1973, the Tiger Project was instituted in the Sundarbans, and Sundarban entered in the International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources list of World Heritage Sites in the decade of the 80s. If we could move to 11, slide number. Interestingly, Sundarban is also an abode of the humans, because normally the image that conjures up in our minds when we invoke Sundarbans or when we talk about Sundarbans is that it's a hugely forested delta with which kind of an heritage site for its unique natural properties, wildlife, so on and so forth. But it is also a place for the humans. It's a home to about 5 million people, about which almost 2.5 million live on the islands which lie to the south of the delta, closer to the forested islands. It is about Bengal Sundarban, by which I mean the West Bengal part of the Sundarban, Indian Sundarban, has 102 islands, of which 54 are kind of settled islands, and the rest are reserved for tigers. Roughly the social profile, if you could have, quickly to have a look at 16 and 17 slides. Slide number 16, please. This is roughly, I'm not getting into the detail of this, but this is roughly the kind of a block-wise distribution of population. Today, Sundarban is spread over the erstwhile 24 Parganas got split into two of its district, south and north, and Sundarban is spread across these two districts with about 19 blocks, 6 from north 24 Parganas and 13 from south. And this is roughly the population figure block-wise, which gives us a sense of what these populations are, which is largely population migrated from Bangladesh, pre-partition Bengal, partition Bengal, in different parts of West Bengal, Midnapur, and other places. But largely, it is a kind of a home to all this migrant population who have come in and settled on these different islands. Now, the question that arises at this point is that, what this place is then. It is a place which is both a combination of its forested islands and the settled islands, where the forests, which are lying closer to the Bay of Bengal, further south, are the islands which are which disappear underwater every 6 hours during high tide, and they re-emerge when the water has started to retreat. And similarly, when the water goes up during high tide, the settled islands look almost like a kind of a basin, which almost the water rising up to its huge embankments built around these settled islands. And as soon as the water starts to retreat, the islands kind of, they wake up, as it were, and emerge as though they were in slumber. And there's a constant, kind of a dialogue between this forested and the settled islands as the water, travels in and around them, making dialogue possible at one point and almost impossible at the other. and the points when every 6 hours the islands are barely seen from a boat, when the water rises, forests go under the water, and suddenly they kind of come back as though they resurface as the water retreats during low tide. And this is something which makes for the unique topography and the unique landscape of a place, where the rivers and the lands, they have sculpted the landscape and the topography of this deltaic region. Just to give you a very quick sort of a tour, if we could call it a tour at all, in this very unexpected, unanticipated time, probably this could be the best tour that we could possibly have of the Sundarbans. Can I have quickly the slide number 5, please? From a boat, if you are sort of cruising along, it's within an island, where you have this canal being created, where the river mouth, is been connected, and the saline water is allowed in, where there is some fishing can take place. Slide number 7, please. This is once again a very sort of a familiar feature of a floodplain created on the river. When you have the embankment quite in the distance, but what you could see ahead of the embankment, as if you are standing on an embankment, then what you could see is the floodplain beyond which you have the river. Slide number 8, and then to slide number 9, which quickly gives us a sense of people's movement, on the embankment, and people kind of, go down the slope of the embankment to sort of get on the boats for transportation, moving across. If we quickly have, 14, which tells us also the movement of not only people, but also movement of livelihoods, the kind of activities that go on an everyday basis. Slide number 15, please. Movement of people once again, which gives us a kind of a sense of who these people are, how they sort of navigate this terrain and topography and the landscape, and how they negotiate a place which they have kind of domesticated, kind of almost made their own over the years. If we now could get to the question with which